Hi everyone, how are you all? It is a crazy time to be alive, isn't it? We probably never imagined that we would all be going through this together. And in many ways, it's kind of a blessing, isn't it? Because otherwise, we're secretly suffering alone. And there are systemic injustices that puts certain population in an oppressed place and they suffer, but they're not in front of our eyes, or they're not in immediate experiences. So we are not able to resonate, relate, empathize with with them. And so, considering that this is a global pandemic, it kind of gives us a reference point of the fear inside, the anxiety, the suffering, the panic, the uncertainties, the unknown, fear of all of those, and it has reached globally. It hasn't discriminated between race, gender, status, class, education, age, uh, you know, intelligence, height, beauty, whatever, anything, it hasn't discriminated. So we kind of are going through that together. And it kind of gives us an opportunity to really, pay attention to this. This is what so many people live with on daily basis. And we have not been able to validate, witness, hear, empathize, cultivate compassion and generosity, and move this body and speech and thoughts and everything that we have to creating a more equitable world for everyone to enjoy. We haven't eaten here already. You throw some seeds, it grows. We're thirsty, there's water. We're hungry, there's food. We're hot, there's shade. We're lonely, you go and connect with nature. Everything that we need and want is here. We want joy, there's so many pleasurable practices we can do. Yet somehow, not somehow, we know exactly why it happened, because there is a intentional designing of this matrix, the conditionings, especially those who are aware and have power, and they have been manipulating the whole into getting enslaved to satiate their insatiable addiction to their own pleasurable practices, their addictions, their greed, their lust, their hunger and thirst, all of that. And so we've kind of been sacrificing our personal joys and stuff to fulfill in this, kind of a small collective entities who are ruling the world, who understands that confusion is very beneficial in keeping the matrix very intact and solid, and like an imprison, like a prison. And so when we can now that everything has collapsed and we're getting time here to reflect, what's coming, what's benefiting us right now, who's showing up is the community. We're showing up to each other. And it's hard to imagine a world without the capitalism or monetary, currency system, or that kind of very self-centered, materialistic, um, exploitative and extractive kind of economy. And as a result of that, our health, our well-being, the well-being of the Mama Earth, well-being of our future generations, the well-being of all of our offsprings are at stake. And now we are being quarantined to do our own work so we can come out with a little bit more clarity. And it's such an unprecedented time. We're used to constantly, when we talk about spiritual path, we always feel and think that we need a teacher, we need a guru. And isn't it amazing in this time that a lot of gurus have been exposed as exploitative as well. And it gives us this, it brings us back to this message that, that we know in our heart what is the right thing to do. And that right or wrong is not conditioned by some sort of culture, Christianity or Buddhism or Islam or, Hinduism or Jainism or Zoroastrian or Sufism or, or whatever you have, atheism or whatever you have. They're all conditionings from outside. The message, the integrity message, our inherent pure nature is written in our DNA. Nobody can steal it. And harder they try to make us suffer, actually. And if we pause and question and remain curious, greater that potential to awaken your own inherent wisdom. For a while, we've been getting enslaved by them, and we've been making, them happy just so we could survive, that we could pay our bills and keep running the hamster wheel, right? We've been doing that because we just wanted to survive. And now we're in such a, transition time. We have a choice here. We're meeting here in this space of complete uncertainty and unknown. And what will arise from this will depend on what seeds that we're going to sow right now in this very moment. Are we going to sow the seed of abundance, life, love, freedom, family, all of us together, the wholesomeness? Or are we going to sow the seed of separation here again and say, me, and mine, me and mine, me and mine? What seed are we sowing right now is going to determine the future of our humanity. And I was saying that this is such a democratic process, that it is really, we each have to choose, irrespective of what the outer conditioning is. The outer conditioning will change once we make that personal choice on a daily basis. We're so used to having to choose between the lesser of the evils, two, established parties, good and bad, white and black, tall and short, or, rich and poor. And it's very, very polarized and, dichotomous. But reality is not two. It's not one. It's not three. It's not four. It's everything and nothing. And it is so. It is magic, and it depends on us, kind of seeing the framework of this magical, elusive world, and what kind of magic do we want to do. And the beautiful part is, like, you don't need a guru, you don't need teachers. You can use wonderful books of all traditions as a reference point, but it only matters when you embody it within yourself. Um, in the midst of that time when you want to separate and, uh, you know, other something, if you can embody the teachings of these and kind of become a little bit more reflective. In the beginning, it's very solid. We're 100% sure that that person is wrong, that race is wrong, that gender is wrong, that country is wrong, that nation, that sex, that, that richness, whatever, we're 100% sure that they are wrong. That's how we start. Um, but in that yin and yang, there is like the inside, the yin and yang are there, like two yin and yang's opposites inside. It's like that. It's like, collectively, yes, we need to dismantle all the systemic injustices so we can give a best shot at equal playground for all to thrive. In Absolutely true, legit. And then within that and bigger yin and yang, there's an inner responsibility, that free will that we get on how to respond to the outer influences. Are we going to be tainted by that? When the dust of outside comes, are we going to take the dust on and going to say, like, this is me, now this dust is me, and we're going to build a story around that that's so solid that we're not even allowing ourselves to be flexible enough to shake the dust off and then wake up into our own beingness. So what kind of, can we take responsible for that inner free will that we have at the moment, while simultaneously working to dismantle the systemic injustices without hating, you see? Because it's so easy to hate, and it's so easy to other, because then we don't have to do our own work, right? um, when we really look inward, we're like, why are the systems like this? If the systems were like this, then all would be fine, and all of this system could be perfect. But if I am a very blaming person, a confused person, I'll remain confused still. I'll always find a way to blame somebody, and I'm a perfect example of that. I have a very privileged lifestyle. I don't earn anything because I've been living off the gift economy model. It's a post-capitalistic world. I've been living since 2014. Once we started our business of our mindful kitchen, which is based on the gift economy model, which says that it's a gift from us. You choose however you want to return and exchange that energy. You can exchange it towards us, or you can exchange it forward. But the main purpose, or the main inspiration for the gift economy, is that we all have a gift inside, the spark of gift inside that's inherent in us, that's so unique. It comes from this, such a all-encompassing place, but it's danced or crafted or sculpted by your unique experience, and that becomes your own gift. And nobody can create this gift that you have, because everyone's experience is individual. So we have this individual aspect, and we're sharing it to the collective, because we each are holding sparks of jewels of, somebody might be holding a spark of compassion, and other might be holding a spark of patience, and the other might be spark diligence, or something like a beauty, or like a joy, or love, or pain, or whatever. We all have these things individually, depending on our life story. We only are dedicated to one, at least for me, I like to taste only one thing, and then get into that door, and then from understanding one, I would like to understand everything from that kind of place. And that feels to me like the shortest path. The step-by-step path feels like the shortest path for me. One step, and then within that one step, if there are doubts and confusions and everything comes, then that becomes the lesson. So before even taking that one step, you're taking a half step. So that step to me feels like the fastest path to understanding something fully. And I'm sure it'll take forever to understand everything, because we've been built with eons and eons and eons and eons of karmic accumulations of all the dusts when there was nothing, and then we are this solid. And so it's going to take time to, kind of shed these layers, and that's totally fine. Nobody's in rush. Is anybody in rush? No, we're not in rush. We're just in uh, uh, the fun of exploration, of discovering and unpeeling ourselves, right? And so, in that way, there's an urgency, but it doesn't mean we need to rush. I feel like more urgent things are slower if we move, um, and clearer, more risky and more urgent the condition is. It feels to me like, if we slow down and look at everything, then with precision come with a solution uh, that can become the antidote for that. Then it becomes like a perfect medicine, instead of like trying out all the antibiotics, and this vaccine, that vaccine, this one, and then we kill the body, person, and then we're like, okay, um, we rush, we responded from this panic mode of like, I have to do something. And so right now I feel like we're getting an opportunity to, really go into the retreat mode, um, and kind of contemplate on, our own life and all the conditionings. And it's like, how do we want to, what kind of world do we want to live in? And how do you want to live in? How do you want to feel? Who do you want to be? Um, Everything is up, everything is up for games. You know what I mean? You can imagine anything, and then you can, if you have the courage, and courage is a practice again, right? And you have to have a context that nobody's perfect. There's not a single human being who's perfect. Even the ones who we think are perfect are not perfect, And so, really, taking that in your, like a whole beingness, it's not perfection that's courageous, uh, it's a willingness to embrace everything that's in our heart, and then, show, not necessarily like you're not forced to show, but you are compelled by an energy that's within you, um, that's going towards, merging into the greatness, into the greater expanse, to the greater collective, and it comes from that inspiration, and then it moves forward and says, okay, this is my gift, and I cannot hold it anymore. I've been ingesting it forever, and I cannot keep it to myself anymore. If this is helpful to anybody, if this is a dot that somebody needs to, in order to connect their dot in there, and then it connects the other dots, and then you start getting illuminated, and you, from inside, all connected, and you can sense it in your body, how the shadow and the light, and in between the grays and the colors are all playing in these ways. And then you kind of have a choice on how you want your energy to move in the world. So depending on, what you feel will be most helpful. And this is an interesting part, like, what is bad and what is good, traditional religions have taught us, like, the good is the virtues, and the bads are the, non-virtues that are bad and stuff. And we just start from there. But when it's a condition with somebody saying, no, do not steal, do not hit, do not this and that, and if you don't have a reason for why, then, and if hitting feels good, you'll do the hitting, because it feels good. Or stealing feels good, and if somebody's stopping it, there's a resistance that creates, and it perpetuates more actions, the similar actions of that. So asking, like, what is good and what is bad? In the scheme of the bigger picture that's holding both yin and yang, is there good and bad, right? But within the good and within the yin and yang, within the dark and light, there's goodness and badness. So why is that? Why is something bad, and why is something good? And when we contemplate, at least for myself, this is what the conclusion that I came to is, what is bad is something that causes harm. What is good is something that brings joy or happiness, and that's a good. And so if you steal something, what it does, it causes harm to somebody, because somebody doesn't want to be stolen, because they have gotten attached to the property that they have said that this is mine, and so that's why it's harmful. But from this big picture, you're like, the person who is stealing is good, because they're teaching the person whose goods are being stolen to not get attached. That's one perspective, and that's true. But we don't live majorly. We don't live in the whole space that holds both yin and yang and everything in between. Rather, we are living in the manifested world, the solid world, the physical world that blocks the light in order to be in existence. If Sadhguru says it really beautifully, like, if we're all light, then we will not be solid, right? Because solid, what the definition of matter in certain ways, it kind of blocks the flow of the light, and then it also creates shadows at the same time. And so is shadow bad? No, it's just because it came into the manifestation. So we're going to see only one side and we're going to miss the other side. And so there's a constant attempt to kind of look at the other side, and not only look at my perspective, but look at the, whoever I'm in relationship with, and the interactions, the other perspective as well. So that's why listening becomes so important, right? And communication becomes so important, right? Because we're all living in a galaxy of the perceptions in our head and our being. And then when we're in love and in relationship, we just expect everybody to know exactly how you feel, like especially your close ones, like, you should know better, you've been married to me for, I don't know, 50 years, 60 years, and not appreciating enough of, like, we're cosmic beings. We've come from far away, eons and eons of time, and we still have to communicate. We have to communicate as best as we can, to so that other can see clearly what want to be, how you want to be perceived, right? And they take such a practice of patience and diligence and gentleness and compassion and all the good stuff that we talk about, understanding and love and empathy and all of that, right? Because this, like, everything is a misunderstanding to start with. How about that? We just start with, like, we are misunderstanding each other. So let's try to come a little bit into a union with each other. And how do we come to the union? In the beginning, from the gross level, because we don't have access to the omniscience in us, because of all the cloudiness, the dust that has settled on for us, that we have identified as me and mine and I, ego, and so we're not going to see each other clearly. We're going to see each other through the lenses of our experiences, and understanding that, and then going from there with this kind of okay, can I be generous in my communication, and then can I actually learn to listen, listen, not just the words, but also listen the energy that's coming from. And sometimes in the relationship, we say, like, I hate you, I want a divorce. I say that a lot, It's just not going to work out, just get out of here. There's that, what inside I'm saying is, I'm so scared. I'm so scared that this is not working. I'm so scared I'll be left alone. I want to be understood. I want to be loved. Please love me. That's where the cry of the inside is, like, please love me. The mouth is like, I hate you. It's trying to control, because it doesn't want to embrace the, intimate vulnerability inside myself, that has forgotten that I'm already whole, that there is no need of anybody to fill it up. And then when I am forcing that need, I am violating that person's cosmic right to be who they are, And so in some case, like, we demand, but do we have the right to demand? And I feel like we have the right to request. And that everything has to come from a request. Like, we teach kids, right? Whatever they want. So, like, what's the magic word? Please. But as adults, we forget. And so anyways, that's what comes up, for me during this time. Like, if you're in a home and you're feeling lonely and you're, feeling stressed out or anything like that, um, come into your body first. Check where are you feeling it. The head, the mind will take you everywhere. It's never ending. It's so rich. It's like it's gonna pull out of all the expansiveness of the cosmos, and it's gonna pull with all of that, and then all the rehashing, the recycling that's going on, the judgments, all of it, the stories in there. So if the energy is in the head, first bring it down. I love just like feeling my feet, the soles of my feet, like where am I standing? Can I feel the contact? My heels, my toes, the balls of the toes. And do I feel like I have landed, that I have arrived on this earth, on the ground? Am I connected to her? Am I part of her? Like, I just love coming here. And then, my ankles and calves and, shin and knees, and then the legs, your hips, and the belly, and all of it arrive here first. And then once I feel like, okay, my body has arrived here, then I check my breath, like, okay, how's my breath doing? And a lot of time the anxiety comes from here, right? Like, I gotta go, something has to happen. I gotta go, do this, right? And so noticing that and bringing it down into your gut. I love touching my belly. And then it's like, like that. Even when I'm sometimes in the, going out in the midst of it, like, and just coming back, grocery shopping, anything, and in like a mass, a collective situation, a collective place, or whatever it is. Like, I was just checking, like, am I grounded? Am I centered? Because if I'm not centered, the wind of the collective is going to carry me. And so, like, just constantly coming back to that autonomy and that free will inside myself, the sovereignty of knowing that I belong. No matter whatever is going on, I still belong. The whole world is going after this, but I still belong. The whole world is going that way, but I still belong in it. Like, wherever I go, I belong. I'm home wherever I go, whether I'm in Tibet or America or this and that. I'm home. It's like, all that kind of like, kind of coming home into your gut. And most of us will notice, if you have never paid attention to the breath, it's like we're breathing from here. It hardly ever comes here. And your lungs are here, they're in the lower area, like, there's a whole, like, we're not taking advantage of our ability to expand and have spaciousness. We work with the 5 elements, and we we eat the earth. We're on the earth, we drink the water, and we churn in the heat with the stove and all of this, and the wind is moving and everything, like. But what about the space? That's where we want to kind of become aware of too, that all of this is happening in this space. And the space is within you, and the space is also outside. And between the space outside and the inside is a very thin, skin, muscles, tissues, bones. That's it, right? And so we just have to kind of learn to merge with the elements that are around us, and then listen. Like, a lot of times, like, one of the best practices for me for meditation is learn to listen. Eyes closed, eyes open, whatever is going on, listen to your breath, to your sensations inside, and notice what they're telling you. And if it's a really strong sensation, it's usually asking, please slow down. Please be gentle. Please love me. Listen to me. Hear me. See me. Smell me. Taste me from inside. That if you embrace me fully, you will be full already, and you won't need to go out chasing, running, consuming, looking Whatever you're looking for is inside. Like that. It's like it tells you like the contentment that comes from that. And then from that space, when you feel the joy, the enoughness inside, then you dedicate the merit of this to everybody. Because, like I said at the beginning, none of us are perfect. We all are confused from all this journey, cosmic journey that we've been doing. We have gotten so far from our origin, yet origin is inside. It just got accumulation. It got more and more gross and big and stuff. So it's just a matter of diving in and cutting through and seeing ourselves clearly. And so trusting in that process. It might feel like, oh, it's going to be a forever journey. Um, Maybe it will be, maybe it won't. And the best, the fastest route to go there is to start here, now, step by step, invest in yourself, and then from that, it overflows, and there's no way that you can hoard for yourself. Um, it's because we are one, you know, we want to share this, we want, when we see suffering, when we see, you know, inequalities, pain, and injustice, all that. We want to do something to make it right, But how do we make it right? Do we make it right with the self-righteousness that I am right and you are wrong? Because that's going to create the same perpetuation of the oppression, oppressed, victim, villain cycle. And that's how it's been going on. Reason why we've been going so long is that's what's happening. And from a Tibetan Buddhist perspective, most likely, you become like whatever your biases today is. If I'm Asian and I have bias against white supremacists today, and unless I see the humanity in them, I'm going to get the same lesson again and again and again. And if I don't finish it this lifetime, it'll come back in a different form. See? And if I hate my mother, next time it's the same thing. She's going to probably come as my daughter or something like that, that I have no choice but to fall in love. And it's like this cosmos is like so fascinatingly, arisen, I don't want to say created, but it's like a magic that has arisen, right? And I'm playing part in it, whether knowingly or unknowingly. And just because I didn't know and I'm ignorant doesn't, free me of the responsibility of the consequences of my ignorance. And just as it doesn't, just because I'm aware doesn't, of course, if I'm aware, I'm also responsible for the consequences. And that's the beauty of karma. Karma is not a bitch, really. Karma is like an unbiased accountant. And so it just is like tallying, whatever your action, whatever your thoughts, whatever you say is going to have an equal and opposite reaction, right? Like a scientific kind of fact around that. There's a cause, there's an effect. And this effect could become a cause for something else, and that's going to have a ripple effects, and then this and this and that. And then it becomes this unfathomable, you know, expansive creation of a sort of web, the weave, right? And so just taking in this moment, if you're feeling panic and anxiety and overwhelmed because we don't know what to do because it's so huge, start with yourself, start with coming to the ground. Know that you are on earth. Know your breath and check your mind. Let the breath come into the body and let your mind write the breath. And we say like your body, speech, and mind are in alignment. And so there is more like integrity and embodiment that comes from that. And if you're not embodied, please don't guilt and shame yourself excessively. And I'm saying excessively because there is a trend happening right now. Like, guilt is bad, shame is bad, pain is bad, fear is bad, this and that. No, all of them has medicine. And that medicine has to be a perfect dose. And the perfect dose depends on your own makeup. For somebody, you might have to feel a little bit more guilty, especially if you are, numb to these things. You do want to feel more guilty. But if you're sensitive, usually people who are sensitive feel more guilty, like, of course, right? And they're excessively guilting themselves, and then that paralyzes them, right? And so it paralyzes us, like, I'm in it too. And so like that, just whatever comes, like, try to kind of shave off the excesses and the repression too. So you come more to an even ground, more like a neutral, being able to see from a truth side, more truthful, basically, become more honest. But some people feel like, oh, being honest means I should say, like, I'm such a bitch, I'm so horrible, I'm the worst, like, I am the lazy, I'm the most lazy. No, that's not honesty, that's exaggeration. What we're saying is just be honest, like, oh, these are ways that I um, don't bring my integrity when I know these, but yet I don't do them. And then, just it's not like, oh, I don't do now, I'm going to do it. No, there is a body. It stores the trauma, right? It stores the memory. And there are reasons why, yeah, you're not able to embody. And so that's your work to kind of go through the layers of invisible karmic knots inside yourself, and the karmic knots of conceptions, feelings, emotions, right? And of course, the bodily joint wise and physical and physiological manifestations as well. So paying attention to them, listening them, and then be as patient as you can, be as gentle as you can, because the knots are really, really tight knot. And so how are you going to, unknot them? You don't want to, rip and pull and push. It's like in yoga, you see a lot of like stretch and push and pull, instead of like becoming gentle and then unknotting them with your breath, taking permission from your breath when you're unknotting. Because if you're stressed, you won't be breathing properly. So come again to your body, come back to your breath, and then unknot one by one. And if it's so tender, I was telling to a friend, if it's so tender, like, get so gentle, like you're using your tongue to take poison off somebody, or like a thorn off somebody, like a glass shatters on somebody's body. It's your own body, but there are many glass pieces shatters, whether it's through systemic injustices or from ancestral trauma or from your own confusion and karmic, all of that. So if you have to lick yourself to get that out, you have to do that. You have to become gentle, slow, and then like that. You have to do it to yourself. Like, become as gentle as you can, like a breath, like a subtle breath, like a gentle breeze. For some people, when you're so traumatized and sensitive, even a cool breeze that's most joyful, pleasurable experience in the world can become the most painful experience as well. So you have to become even more gentle, right? So know yourself. Unless you know yourself, you won't be able to figure this out. What is that dose for you? And so come home again and again to listening. How is this? How did this come to be? What are the variables, cause and conditions that build this up? What are the emotions, the stories, the thoughts, the experiences, and all of that brought us here? So honoring that first, knowing yourself, and then I love these works because I know from my experience that there's always a reward. I'm not doing it for reward, but there is. It's inherent when you start like becoming a little bit aware, and the prison wall collapses. The breath that you get out of having more space is inherent in that. You feel more free, and uh, it's a reward. And because there is the freedom, then you feel more trusting. There is more, faith, and there's more resilience. There's more optimism and hope that comes up. And all of these are kind of um, benefits, or like a reward, or a side effect of actually knowing yourself. It just comes. And so I would really encourage, if you can, if you have the capacity to pause. We've been enclosed and quarantined into a pause moment, yet our neurotic conditioning is that we could still be running and busy. Even if physically we are quarantined, it's running. And then there is like a great addiction of the ego to keep getting distracted and wanting to be distracted, because it doesn't know how to sit still, you know. And one of the best ways to learn to sit still is to learn to listen, and not outside. Listen to yourself. Listen to your thoughts. Don't believe it, but listen. Listen to your sensations, feeling of it. Not believing, yet listening, and then becoming more aware of the patterns of the mind, the body, and the emotions, and such a speech. And then as you become more recognizing them, and then a lot of rituals will come out of it as a result, like confession. A confession in the Christianity tradition or Buddhist tradition, the rituals are set because it has benefit. I think the drawback of the religious tradition is it's been enforced, we had to do it, or because that's what good girls and good boys and good people, good human do and stuff, instead of letting it arise from inside. And when you have trespassed so much from inside, confession comes naturally. We want to admit it to somebody. It doesn't have to be God. The best way is to admit to yourself, because you're going to liberate yourself, right? It's when inside you, the Guru, the God is within you. So confess it to yourself, how you have betrayed and trespassed and forgotten and kept yourself completely distracted again and again because you have forgotten who you are. And so remember, right? Keep remembering. As you taste it, as you taste the freedom, as you taste the joy and stuff, don't rush. That was one of the things I used to do, is there's a little bit of pleasure that comes, I just reject it. And I'm I just move on, because I'm used to the pain body. I'm used to sitting with pain so much that when the joy comes, I don't sit, because I know the pain's going to come. And so I would rather sit with that. It becomes so familiar. And so my practice had been more about embracing and cherishing joy and the pleasures of life, and that's going to be a long journey. And I just started on this journey, a few years ago, just embracing this joyfulness part of myself. And so, anyways, that's part of that. And this is a part of the decolonization work for me. There is a systemic decolonization that we're doing. That has tangible systems that are in place, and there is a systemic decolonization that we're doing inside within ourselves, the colonization of our inherent true nature by ego, right? And through the ego, the ahamkara, the I-centeredness. Out of that came all the other confusions. Out of I came the desire, and the realm of desire, and the realm of aversion, right? I want this, I like this, I don't like that, I don't want that. And then out of that comes all the other emotions. Because I like this, I feel happy, I feel, good, and it tastes good, this, that, all the sense pleasures. And otherwise it's aversive. That's why I'm angry, I'm envious, I'm jealous, and then, I'm aggressive, I'm repulsed, I'm disgusted, and stuff like that. It comes from that. And then it becomes its own framework of web that we get entangled again into. And so there's the dismantling work, the decolonization work has to happen inside and outside. And when we dismantle it from outside, it becomes more easier for us to come inward and do the dismantling. But it's not guaranteed, because the beauty of suffering is, because there's suffering, it allows us to sow the seed of compassion. And in Buddhist texts, we talk about how in heaven, because there's no suffering, it's all a pleasurable realm. You don't get opportunity to cultivate compassion, understanding, and love. What you have is just arrogance, because you think you're going to live forever. But heaven too is bounded by karmic, karmic effects, cause and conditions. Once you run out of credits, you're down. And then if you still don't, do enough to get the credit, you're in debt. So it's the same thing. It's not a punishment of the sort, but this is just how the reality is. To a certain degree, how this manifested reality is made out of. It's made out of cause and effect, and accumulation, and stuff like that. And so this much to reflect and get curious about and ask and question. And I hope that you really use this opportunity of a global crisis to move you from inside to such an extent that you would never want to see that again. And even if that happens, that's fine. But at least in sowing the intention here to do your own work, so that you and I don't cause harm to somebody else, and um, and that we could all live more happily, uh, less stressed, um, more economous, and more free of our bias and addictions, um, more loving, more compassionate, more joyful. And so, thank you so much. And I'll dedicate this prayer for the benefit of all human beings and all living beings, all sentient beings. So, I hope that you find this helpful. May all living beings, may all sentient beings be happy and have the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separate from the happiness devoid of suffering. And may we all dwell in a state of equanimity, free of aggression, bias, and addiction. Thank you. 도지체.